+6/+6 to everything. And I would like to move to combat, please. It'll be 1, 3. We activate this. We do it here. Cast this Elspeth for free. Then we can give our creature flying for the absolute lethal strike. Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to be playing the very cool combo deck that is Collector Cage. This card is a very cool artifact from the big score that has Hideaway 5. Hideaway is a kind of an older mechanic, but basically we exile the top 5 and then we get to cast that card for free if we meet the requirement of what's next. So pay 1, tap this artifact. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Then if that creature, if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, you may play the exile card without paying its mana cost. It's kind of what Hideaway does. A lot of those are on lands and so on and so forth. So how do we do that? Well, we play a lot of cheap stuff into hopefully a 3 mana creature that allows us to kind of divide our power and toughness across the board. Or we get to use a couple of 2-drops, which we'll get to in a second. But mainly, we have a Llanowar Elf in here for ramp and kind of to meet that requirement as well. And then we have a Paul Patch Recruit, which is an offspringable creature. So it acts as a 1-drop and a 3-drop if we need it to be. And then it is a kind of 2-power creature and a 1-power creature there. But the best one on turn 2 to play and then into the Collector Cage would be the Salvager, because it does come in and make a 1/1 and this is a 3/3. So if we do play Llanowar Elves into this, we can then activate Cage on turn 3 by playing it, exiling something good, activating it, targeting either the Salvager or the Llanowar Elves, which most likely will probably be targeting the Salvager, and then we'll get to cast whatever is underneath this cage for free. But we have a couple of things along the way to make sure that we get to that point, and that is by playing Shelter by Ghost and Voice of Victory. Voice of Victory doesn't allow our opponents to play stuff on our turn, and Shelter by Ghost oftentimes can be aggro decks on its own, so having those in our deck makes it a lot more likely that we'll get to pull this off. Other than that, we have Bright Glass Gearhulk as kind of a rounding piece. This card is really solid, and that's why we have these 1-ofs of Dust Rose, Pixie, and Haywire Might in the deck. And then we'll just hop into kind of our top end stuff and what we're hoping to hit. Best card most of the time is going to be Craterhoof Behemoth, and it's not necessarily that close. This is kind of a card, unless you play Commander, you'd be a little bit have a little bit of a fog of war on it. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but basically you probably won't know what this card does really unless you play Commander. But this card has haste. It is a 5/5. When this creature enters, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. So that kind of feeds into the fact that we're making 2 creatures off Paul Patch. We made 2 creatures off Evangelius. We make 2 off of this. Bright Glass Gearhulk can go buy other creatures. The kind of Voice of Victory can make extra creatures. Even though Voice is a little bit weird for this one specifically. But with that, this typically is going to enter and make all of our creatures at least a 7/7 to a 10/10, and then they will all be able to kind of swing, have trample, and then we'll be able to delete our opponent's life total very quickly. And then we have a final hit of Elspeth Stormslayer. This card is replacing the White Overlord, as it does double our tokens, and we do make a lot of them, so it does double all those as well. We could plus make more, minus remove a threat, or give everything flying and just close out the game without even necessarily having to do the Collector Cage combo. With that said, we're going to go ahead and hop into the games. If you all enjoy my content, please consider subscribing, and let's dive in game. Just play this Voice, Shelter by Ghost it, eating whatever they play against us, and then going from there. The red land, well, we see a blue land. Now we see Boros, and our opponent cannot cast spells on our turn, which matters a lot when it comes to that protection spell that they play. So if there's one of those to be deployed, I'm not going to be able to do so. I don't attack, and I definitely ain't. That's my language for you. Definitely not wasting any time. I'm taking that creature under my wing, and I am just attacking. There's something cool to be said with our kind of deck that we're currently playing. That put a 1/1 counter on each creature token you control to gain trample. Whenever this attack and mobilizes, you can then activate this after that, so your golem plus those 1/1s get a counter. Now, does that really do you any good? Not entirely, just because of the way that it kind of functions and the fact that the creatures die after that turn. But it can matter in a situation like this, where our opponent's definitely probably going to block our 1/1, maybe not. There's not really a reason to. But in a situation like this, it's going to be lethal, right? Because now I get to attack for 2, attack for 3, attack for 2 more across the board, and then I can put a counter across all of them. So that'd be 4, 6, 8 plus this. So if, considering our opponents missed a land, their white mana is hurtful, And they can't cast spells on my turn. The only real out I see is Shelter by Ghost taking Shelter. Why do I even talk? Is Shelter by Ghost taking Shelter. This coming back. They target it for double strike. And then they attack me. And then it hits a land or something. Maybe they won't even attack. So that's also possible. Elspeth would also be a sick draw here. So they can't take my creature, right? So lethal is still like on the table. It's weird. It's such a weird thing. At this point, we hope they target and they whiff on a land. There's an ethereal armor. Unless they have land in hand, then obviously we would prefer them to not. We still have lethal here? It's close. Well, lethal unless they block, which they can definitely do. Sure. Electric Cage. Okay. All the play still can happen. So let's cage. What do we hit? All right, that'll solve some problems. Now I want to put a counter on this. And we get to play the Gearhulk, and we have a really sick play that we do get to do here. I can now Haywire Might. This is all we really need, and then we can also Dust Rose, I guess. Dust Rose, any permanent exile target artifact or creature. That's an enchantment, so it unfortunately does not answer that. Now we can Haywire Might, and then I can pop the Haywire Might to take out the Shelter by Ghost, which will then give me my Shelter by Ghost back. I can then attach it to my voices. Then I can take the Manifold Mouse and strike for lethal, which is a very sick and clean play that we get to make. But yeah, very cool. We get to move on. The hand's a little tough, huh? We have to maul that hand. Yeah, this is significantly better. We'll most likely just let Elspeth go, even though it has the most payoff potential in our hand. But I think we're definitely going Llanowar Elves, Offspring this, and then Shelter by Ghost. So Elspeth has to be thrown aside here. There's obviously also, if Llanowar Elves sticks around, there's always the chance it doesn't. Blue-red, maybe? No, blue-white. The temporary lockdown's definitely a thing. They also can just counter this as well. We're going to try. They have counterspell. Okay, it's Omniscience combo, so we're pretty much on the fence already. Thankfully, these don't allow them to bounce our stuff super easily. They put a creature in our way. We'll obviously just Shelter by Ghost it out of our road so we can get our damage in. But with that said, I mean, I can't really stop them regardless, and I want to put as many counters across creatures that I can if they're looking to bounce my stuff. Temporary Lockdown is obviously a card that can happen, but when we see Omniscience combo, we have to go in. There's just nothing else we can do. What to do, what to do. Well, there's a riddle. You have an opponent. You win the game. Well, it's a tap land. I don't have a way to really do much else. Okay, I now have found a way to potentially do something else. Let's play Collector Cage. Hopefully there's no counter spell here. Could bounce my creature in response. There's a Craterhoof. I mean, you want to talk about a card with some attitude. I believe this ability still resolves even if they bounce their stuff. Craterhoof? +6/+6 to everything. And I would like to move to combat, please. I would like to turn them sideways. Nice tap land, by the way. This is the thing where like you want to you absolutely have to know if they have anything and how many dispersals they have here. But considering 2 of these are all lethal, they can have 2 more disperses and they'll still lose the game. It actually doesn't matter. Because as soon as they target anything, I put more counters everywhere. And then if just these 2 alone hit and nothing else gets counters, then they lose the game. Sometimes some hands are just not meant to be, and this is one of them. That is one of them. In old arena-like fashion, we drew every top end piece that we have. And we'll just throw the Llanowar aside. We'll play our tap land and go about our business right now. We don't really have a whole lot of other choices. Don't really want to go down any lower than that. Let's establish a cage here, because it's definitely a situation where kicking this is probably going to be best. And we'll obviously put a Craterhoof underneath there, because Craterhoof is pretty good, as we saw from our last game, of course. But what will our opponent be doing? Are you actually Golgari? So this is answerable by them. Glissa is enchantments, I believe. They could play Terra Sunder. They could look to cycle a Mosswood here. Scavenging Ooze doesn't really bother us at all. Llanowar Elf and a Recruit, so we will keep. We'll see what's up. I don't know why I said keep. We'll keep pushing forward is maybe what I want to... What did I want to say? Why did I say keep? I don't know, dude. So if we draw another one of these, we actually can still put this Craterhoof in play, which is quite crazy to think about, but unfortunately we miss. Now we have to go for this, because Unholy Annex doesn't actually matter if we just lamb them this turn. Everything will get a +5/+5 if we're allowed to do this. If we draw a land, we can Shelter by Ghost and then give everything +5/+5. And Craterhoof obviously has haste, so as of right now, it is looking very good for us to win this game. So we put a counter here. We cast a Craterhoof. Then we move to combat and we just attack out. So they can block. And they'll just die, okay? Was it... Oh, I forget that Craterhoof gives everything trampled. Yeah, they can't... Well, after last game and my goofiness, yeah, we'll definitely keep this. Honestly, the one of Pixie in this deck has been weirdly nice, and in literally the weirdest way. And the fact that it's like, yeah, you know, if our collector cage sucks, let's just pick it up and wheel it again. You know what I mean? Like, it is the weirdest little thing that we got going on for us here. And for example, this is a situation in which our collector cage kind of sucks. We'll just put this under here. We'll just pass and turn, please. We can always do this at any point. Let's always just go with Craterhoof to do it when we do it. Sure. We think they have a Monstrous Rage. And that's the only thing that beats us here. Turn inside out. So, I mean, I will take this. Rather not take this trade for no reason, right? Then, honestly, I'm probably going to play Pixie, pick up this cage, and try to re-wheel. I think we have to. We need to make sure we play the white source. Pick this cage back up because it sucked. Then we'll re-deal the wheel. Then that is much better. I will just take... Is it Gearhulk or Elspeth? Because we have Elspeth in hand. And the problem is, like, Elspeth is probably going to be how we get to do the cage, right? So I'm going to take the Gearhulk. And we somehow have to survive against the mono red fling deck in a situation like this. Again, they didn't have Monstrous Rage last time, so I kind of doubt they have it this time. So I'm just willing to take this kind of cash in. And now, if we could rip a Gearhulk off the top, that'd be awesome. Down to 8, and my opponent didn't hit me with the creature either time. Or draw another Elspeth after sending one to the bottom. I believe it's to the bottom. Yeah, unfortunate. I think we're just going to lose here off of kind of literally nothing. You can deal 4 to us off of this Heartfire Hero fling. Okay. Yeah, they're flinging it. I'm just not waiting. Well, Arena's doing Arena things, and they're giving horrible hands in the opener. Cool. We'll bottom the Llanowar. It's the second time I've had an Llanowar in my opener that I've had to bottom that's a one of, so that's always good. Always makes me feel happy. But, sure. And then another Elspeth. Fine by me, I suppose, to some extent, but I don't know what I'm against. Play Surveillant really didn't do much else prior to that. So I guess what do I do here? Just attack and hope it's enough? Activate this, I don't know. My opponent for 4, and I'll say go. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of, but the problem is you kind of have to commit to like playing both sides of the coin. So if it's just control, and then I overcommit, and they smite something or something like that, or if it's this, where it's Omniscience combo, like, I waited too long. No, it's Haughty Gen. It's not Omniscience combo. The big old goofy doofy out there. Now, do they have a counter spell? Probably. But we get to answer this regardless of what they do. I'm going to do a shelter on my 1/1, because if they bounce this creature, I obviously get to reestablish, which would be awesome. Yeah, I did target the 1/1 because I did want you to attack my 4/4. I will auto pay for that. Yeah, you can tank all you want. I'm not going to slip up on that. I'm going to attack for 6. Now I know what you're playing. The idea is there is just to wait and then cast it and just hope it works. It's definitely like a it's a paper move for sure. Definitely a thing that happens in paper a lot. Not sure. But of course, no attack, so obviously they have to bend something here. Then I hit the land, so now I can go for Gearhulk, or I can just try to slam this Elspeth. Spell Pierce will answer Elspeth, but it cannot answer a Gearhulk, and for the love of the game, I would like to be able to attack my opponent with my 1/1. So here's Gearhulk. Now we'll just grab more stuff. And honestly, instead of attacking, I guess I would rather just do this. Grab 2 of these, just play 1 of them. Now if they target anything, any of my creatures anyway, I can do stuff about it. And now my Salvager is not going to attack. My 4/4 is. Rather not give them kind of a free opportunity to bounce my Shelter by Ghost and then block a creature for free. I think that's what we're about to see. Yeah, cast that into the Flood Maw. Or Soul Partition, that'll do it too. You like to block my 4/4? It would. So they have a Helping Hand or a Recommission that they're okay with using. So we kind of got our way around that without losing our creature for sure. Now the other thing is we can play this Elspeth and then barrel our spells at them. Thankfully they only hit 1 extra spell, so 7 power creature. Or 8 because I guess Helping Hand goes in the graveyard too, right? So pick lock. That's what, another bounce off, so a turn creature spell, that's fine. Bounce off is not what I'm worried about here. But return to a creature or vehicle, and then they play the Prankster. They either have Spell Pierce or a bounce spell. So if I go to combat now, they'll most likely use a bounce spell, and then they'll go empty-handed, which will allow me to Dust Rose them, which is pretty cool. So I go Offspring here. Obviously it's not spell pierceable. Then now I move to combat. I hold up this Dust Rose, I think. I can't pay for spell pierce anyway, so it's an all-out attack here. Most likely they're going to look to block. And then if they target something to bounce, I'll get to put 3 counters across the board. All Patch will be one of them. Okay. Sacrifice one of these creatures. Our 3-drop's probably not the best of all time right now. They have Spell Pierce, they have Spell Pierce. There's not a whole lot I can do about it. No, they have no other creature in there, so what do they cast? Maybe Moment of Truth, maybe Soul Partition, target that. Maybe that's their goal here. And then they get to keep the bounce off. like you still have to deal with Shelter by Ghost, then I will just target like my Llanowar Elf. All right, they bounce off finally. They actually put a spell on the stack, which is nice, of course. Only gonna really put counters on my tramplers, and at this point I'm gonna put it on the recruiter. So I'm able to trample over this time and then trample over it the next time. Maybe they pick up the bounce off and do something here. All right, they finally choose. Soul Partition. Sure. Target. Target. What is up, boss? What do we got? Maybe I should have spread them out, because now the either would be lethal. They go Hodigen, sure. Okay, we wasted all of our time to do that. Cool. Sweet. Alright, I guess we'll move on. Alright, we can go first. Our hand's a little whack, but we'll keep. Having a card like this with Shelter by Ghost is very cool, because a lot of times your opponent won't want to answer this on their turn. It allows us to a lot of creative freedom here to make sure we're locking down the things we need to, and then they have to answer it on their turn. They can't just like remove the creature on our end step and go from there. Especially against Is It Prowess, it seems. Let's establish this. Of course, there could be a Lightning Strike or something, even though most of those decks don't play it anymore. Yep. So now it seems like a pretty good spot to just Shelter by Ghost, protect our creature, and yeah, I mean, that feels right. Feels like it has to be right, you know? And then for us, we will attack. This is a lot of damage we're putting on our opponent. We're also an aggro deck, right? It's not like we're falling short of being aggressive as well. And then we can go Collector Cage and start putting stuff on there. Activate the Evangelius, and hopefully that'll be fine. Or we have to Shelter by Ghost again and take off the Slick Shot. Slick Shot can close a game all on its own. If you've played against this deck or you've played against Slick Shot enough, you'll know that. Do we risk the risk and walk the walk? Because if Collector Cage misses, it feels so bad. But I also get to gain 3 here. And if I die from 20 with those in play, 2 Slick Shots and dying at 20 is very likely. But, yeah, I mean, guess I'm grabbing Elspeth. We can always answer something here. And we're going to activate, making our creature a little bit larger. Gain 3. And again, we're putting a lot of pressure on our opponent. Our little Craterhoofs in our hand. Back to 20. They have 4 mana. Now it's definitely a pretty good chance that we end up fighting it on this type of turn, but not when a Quarry Steelcutter let's start off. And also not with a Bolt Wave. Monstrous Rage is typically pretty strong, even though it is +6 there, but kind of the permanent damage overall. Nice. Okay, maybe there's a Spell Pierce for whatever card I have held under here. Or my Shelter by Ghost, unfortunately. Yeah, but I don't think playing the creature would have changed the math at all. But they can't play spells on my turn, so it doesn't really matter, right? I can't play these out and activate this, so I guess it's Shelter by Ghost, numerate 2, and then it's either take the Slick Shot or the ground creature, and I think it's got to be the Slick Shot. Then it's just going to suck here. I think I have to attack. I don't know if I have a choice. My life total high. Force them to figure it out from here. Also are swinging for lethal next turn. They have to do it, and the 5th land is not going to help. They can buy back Bolt Wave, and it's close, but it is not enough, I believe. No, they go for Opt here, so they are going to go for blocking. Yeah, and they can't cast stuff on our turn, and there's the card we needed. And we will find lethal here. That's all the way up to 5, so we get to play the kind of scavenger here, or salvager here. So it'll be 1, 3, we activate this, we do it here. Cast this Elspeth for free. Then we can give our creature flying for the absolute lethal strike. and they won't be able to do anything about it from there. So good game. Unfortunate for them, we had a couple of Shelter by Ghosts. If we only had one, we end up losing. But there's also that argument of like, oh, if we hit the land earlier, then maybe we collect our cage much quicker. But either way, we come away with the win and we move on. Oh man, the amount of mulligans I've had to do with this hand, and I have to do it again, is getting quite high and almost to some extent quite frustrating. The fact that it's just like I'm missing over. But with this, we're going to bin our Salvager, I think. Yeah, because we can still... If Llanowar Elves dies, then we just lose out on value. But if Llanowar Elves lives, we have a way better chance of activating the cage. Because we play, and we're on the play, I believe. So I guess here, it might be wrong. And I'm okay with that, to put Shelter by Ghost away. If we were on the draw, I definitely think the Salvager goes away. I don't know why the game was really laggy there, but I definitely think it's reasonable to throw the Salvager away. But here, we get to play Salvager, go into this, play cage. If we draw land, it's perfect. We never know what cage is going to hit, but an Elspeth on 3 or a Craterhoof on 3 is pretty solid. Let's play a cage. Cage enters. Cage triggers. I will take a Gearhulk, because even though it's not exactly what we want, I'll still take the insane amount of value that that gives us. Temporary lockdown obviously can't absorb this. So now we can go Pixie, so we can pick up our cage once again, and then I'll take a Paul Patch Recruit. Obviously don't know what our opponent's playing. You see a green and a Fountain Port, no white, so I guess temporary lockdown's off the table. What our opponent's still on? There's another green. If it's a ramp piece here, I mean this board state is definitely absurd. There's a Haunt Woods. Okay, so we're looking for a board wipe. Potentially. So what is the play? Do I hold and reload? Right, because I have what? I have 8, 9, 10, 11 damage here. Because there could be a board wipe. That's the only thing I'm afraid of. I do think I want to pick up the Collector Cage, though. So I want to activate Cage. I want to put a counter here. Then I want to play Pixie. Then I want to pick up the Cage. I understand there could be a board wipe, and I'm fully aware. Definitely attacking out now. Put him down to 4. Okay, well, maybe there's not. Maybe they're just mono green Ugin nonsense. I've seen a couple of those builds, but I just don't... I feel like we could play around the kind of board wipe, so we did. But yeah, very quickly. I mean, we only had 2 mana outside the Llanowar Elves, and thankfully our Llanowar Elves lived, so we were able to kind of pop off. Llanowar Elves dying there. We have nowhere near the turn we have, so with that said, we'll try to play one more. Alright, my opponent goes first. But it feels nice to not really have to mulligan immediately, so that's pretty cool. I do want to play my tap land on one, but obviously I'm going to go for a Llanowar Elves. I have the mana, so I might as well use it. Now, will they remove my Llanowar Elves? Probably should. Always Bolt's Bird. Okay, that implies that they're a bigger deck, like Boros. There's something, that's for sure. Yeah. I mean, we'll play here. We'll play this. We'll take a damage, unfortunately, but it is what it is. More spells on my turn, though. Be dragons of some kind. What to do. I'm fully good. You're not torture towering my voice. Oh, I'll take 2. What do you got for me? Removal, just another creature. Sure. Seer Slicer Goblin's also fine. This is also a goblin too. Okay, so they're just goblins then. Like, okay, I guess. Again, I can't cast spells during my turn. What do? Do I just go wide as well? Put like a 3/3 in front of them? I guess they could have activated this exhaust and put a 1/1 counter on it, which would have then cleared my voice. So they can do it now if they want. That wouldn't make much sense in my mind. If I attack, they still can't answer anything. But they could double block my voice so they can interact with the board more. But I'm okay with making them attack me and then using my golem to be effective. There could be like a Krenko situation coming up in a turn. So I think regardless of what happens, I'm most likely playing land. Okay. That's fine. How will we attack here? A weird card to be playing. Volley Veteran. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I played the Volley Veteran the time I played the deck, and I was like, I'm not like sold on this. I'm blocking here though. That's gone. Ooh, that's a pretty good pickup. I'll take 2 damage to do so, but it's a pretty good pickup. Yeah, I'll definitely take that chance here. Haywire might not necessarily going to do much. I could go for Llanowar Elves and Pixies, but yeah, maybe I go for this and Llanowar Elf here. Then I pass. And then we can look to Dust Rose here. The thing that definitely gets us is if they activate this, giving Krenko haste. Vehicle enters, vehicle neutral. Goblin, sure. Just Lord right now. I can also exile that, I guess. But we know Gearhulk is a 4/4 first striker, so they're going to have a little bit of trouble dealing with it. Just an all-out attack here will... It'll be like good but bad because you kind of lose resources for damage, but you are red, so like you're okay with that most of the time. Our Gearhulk's most likely going to throw in front of this volley, and then we'll look to be taking like 5 here. I could also just have this Salvager jump in front of a creature just to preserve a little bit of extra life here. I think that's what I'm going to do. As weird as it is, and as little as I like doing that, I think I have to. Untap land would almost be best, because then I can do a lot more on my turn than I could previously. I know this has an ability, and maybe I could have chump blocked to 5, but there's always a chance that they remove my stuff, and that's going to be more damage in the end. What we got here? We activating this finally, or what? No? Another tap land, that's also fine, I guess. Let's play here. And we can do something super sick with this turn. I guess I know this is possible, but I forgot for a second that it was possible. No. We want to tap for green, colorless, and colorless here. We're going to Offspring this. Again, they cannot cast spells during my turn. They can activate abilities, so they could activate this if they had kind of things in the graveyard that mattered. But at this point, I am definitely going to attack for 1. And this is what we get to do and why Mobilize is so sweet. Is this is going to make a creature for us, and then we can play the Dust Rose Reliquary, sacrificing one of those tokens that are already going to be sacrificed themselves. And then we can answer this engine. However, this is crew 3. I kind of want to answer this, but if they play that and then crew and then make a Krenko in and then make a ton of goblins, I'm going to start running into problems. Because their life total is super high. They have like a turn or 2 to kind of mess around unless we rip a Collector Cage and then immediately kind of do something with that. But there could be an argument that we're supposed to grab like Reliquary and a Pixie, so if our opponent does ever play a Krenko, we can kind of answer it. But with that said, oh, unfortunate there. We can't target the creature that's being targeted with this, so that obviously sucks. But I think that means I'm going to swell up here on a creature so I can block this. Unfortunately, if we could target the creature that is being targeted with Paul Patch, then we would have saved our creature. But let me say the same thing 4 times repeated until one of you stop me. Yeah, I mean, I'm in there. It's an aggressive take now. We're swinging for lethal next turn. Definitely attack like this. If they want to block, they can block. I'm going to hold everything up for the Prairie Evangelius kind of attack here. Down to 11. You say go. They still have a higher life total than us, so if you think about it, they're winning, Smile. But I think we're going to slam this matchup. here in literally 2 seconds. Do I double block? I feel like the answer is yes. I have so much power next turn that it doesn't actually matter. I just need to make sure I don't die overall. Oh. So there could be like a fling or something. So bat block, token block, go ahead. And worst case scenario, this adds 2 life to us. Maybe they burn a creature here. They can definitely do a Slicer Goblin. They'll make 2 creatures, and that will not be enough, I don't think. Unless I'm bad at math. They have 2 creatures. We need to go into... I need to make sure our triggers don't auto order. Okay, sweet. So, trigger here. Come up. Get to do something super sweet. We go to combat. We attack. So mobilize and our prairie stream is going to happen at the same time. So thankfully Arena is programmed to do it this way. So mobilize is going to make 2 creatures. I mean, Gallius will buff all of our creatures after. As you'll see down here, the creatures will get bigger. And then the final trigger from our prairie will also happen. So there is no blocks that they can make. So what? Block, and then they take 3, 6, 9, kind of whatever. There's also 4. So actually, it still doesn't matter. So they block, and then they block. And they 3, 6, 9. I can do math, I promise. It's 12 and 15. But the way I'm acting like right now, I can't do math. Taking the time to block does not matter. It is a good game, and I'll see you later, opponent. All right, so here we are in the outro to kind of talk about the list and what kind of transpired over the games, which was a little bit weird, but we do play 24 lands. We missed lands a couple of times, and we're stuck on like 22, like what felt like 22 to 21 lands. We played 24, so not really getting a lot of the lands there was a little bit weird. We also end up drawing a lot of our top end stuff. I mean, we were having hands with like Elspeth and Craterhoof in the opener, and then no mana dorks or no 1-drops, no 2-drops, and things like that. So we kept having them all. And for as often as we mulligan today, I feel like our win rate was incredible, especially in best of 1, where mulliganing is kind of a death sentence overall. Like, it is so hard in our best of 1 climate with mono red and stuff like that to be mulliganing hands. But what I mean more about that is giving ourselves a deck build that provides opportunities for us to have to mull. Like, mono red doesn't have to mull very often because they are so low to the ground. Realistically, they only have to mull 1 landers, and they keep their decks at such a low price that more often than not, they'll never have to. But for us, with a lot of these higher expensive cards in our deck, and one of the problems with like ramp decks or mono green like Ugin decks is I have an Ugin in my hand. I drew another Ugin. Okay. I drew a 5-mana spell. Okay. I can't deal with the board. I died. And that is a fear in this deck. We do play a lot of lower to the ground stuff to kind of bridge that gap, and hopefully it doesn't happen, as you can see. But as you saw in a couple of the openers, I mean, I can't sit here and lie to you and say it's not going to happen. But we had like 2 Elspeths and a Craterhoof in the hand we had to mull. We had Ellis Norn in our opener multiple times, which is like fine. But whenever our hand doesn't work, and I see this in my opener, it's like the card I got to throw back, right? When we're on a mull to 6, I'd much rather this be on the bottom than clunking up my hand. Because we had the weird thing where lands weren't necessarily flowing too well in a lot of our matches. But outside of that, the deck performed great. Collector Cage is such a baller card. And I think having kind of these finishers over the White Overlord feels a lot better, because Elspeth can actually end the game, and so can't Craterhoof, as you saw in a couple of our matches. I can't believe I forgot that this gives them trample. You know, it's kind of like one of those things when you're like, I put in a Craterhoof, I win the game. Especially whenever the last couple of times I played against this in Commander, it's more of like, I have 31 ones that are now 33 33s, or 32 30 or 34 34s, kind of Craterhoof. So like, the trample is never relevant. You know what I mean? Because there's so many creatures attacking you. But here it actually matters when we have only 5 creatures, and the trample matters a ton. So forgetting this had trample is definitely on me, but as you can tell, we're a little bit low. I'm not entirely sure where I got this list. It's kind of one of those lists that I threw in that I found. Maybe I found it on Untapped. I'm unsure. But I found it exactly like this. And one of the cards that I immediately kind of was like, oh, I would throw this in probably almost immediately. That is the Basilisk Collar. And the main reason why is because even if you get this early and you establish it and you can equip it, it gives your creature death touch and lifelink. And oftentimes having this with a Bright Glass Gearhulk available, that gives this first strike, trample, death touch, and lifelink. So you're able to just touch everything once, and it's kind of like what Glissa does, but you're allowed to have trample. The way trample works is like we only have to assign one to every creature, and then the rest will always hit our opponent. So we're always going to be gaining a lot of life. So that's obviously very nice for us. So other than that, this deck is pretty solid, and I like it quite a bit. I do think it's a bit cheaper than what it was, or the cards are a bit more relevant. Maybe I'm lying. Hold on. No, it's not cheap. Never mind. I'm lying. Common, uncommons, uncommons, etc., etc. So we got rares, mythics here. Yeah, it's still a really high mythic deck. So yeah, I guess you got to be a whale to play this deck. That sucks, but kind of is what it is, I suppose, when it comes to this thing. Like, this is another example where like the mythics in paper don't necessarily represent the price outside of like these ones. These kind of suck to craft, but in paper they're kind of whatever. Actually, collector case might not be, but this rare is also expensive. So it's actually weird that this deck would be way more in paper to afford than it would be on Arena, but it just kind of is what it is, because you can always sell those cards out and do whatever you want with them. So outside of that, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.